Good evening, and welcome to the February 27th meeting of the Carrboro Town Council. I am going to wait for our town clerk to come back in and take a seat. No problem. Thank you. And so we'll start our meeting off the way that we usually do. We're coming towards the end of Black History Month. We've been having some good poems. I understand we have a guest poet tonight, and so we're ready. Take it away. And this is Chatham County Commissioner Karen Howard.
Well, thank you all for having me. I call myself the poet politician. And before I start, I will just say that there is a celebration of Women's History Month starting on March 1st and poetry at Steel String at 7 p.m. I will leave the flyer and hope you all can join us, that you're sufficiently inspired by my poem to join us. A Mother's Lament, a letter from a mother to her special needs son. You were not born special. Beautiful, healthy, cherubic, yes, and ordinary, normal, typical. Special came after I'd fallen in love, after you'd learned what potties were for, and that if you held your lips just so and let the air float across your tongue, you could make music and the dog would come. After you'd figured out that letters made words and words made stories and Lego was good for building villages that you left on living room floors. So when they handed you back to me and declared that you were special, I wanted to say no thank you. I don't want a special boy. I just want the broken one back. I love him already. But you know, mothers of special boys learn that the boy they thought they had has died. So stop talking about him. Let him go. Fall in love with this new boy instead. It isn't easy, but it's what moms of special boys do. At least the good ones.
Wow. Thank you so much, Commissioner Howard. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you being able to be with us this evening. Okay. So. So it is my turn to read a proclamation. If I could get Laura Janway to join me at the podium for Invasive Species Awareness Week. Whereas February 26th through March 3rd, 2024 is National Invasive Species Awareness Week. And whereas the spread of invasive species decreases biodiversity, threatens the survival of native plants and animals, and interferes with ecosystem functions. And whereas native plant species perform ecosystem functions such as flood mitigation, soil nutrient cycling, and carbon sequestration, increase biodiversity and support food webs, possess adaptations to local conditions, providing savings on maintenance costs, by requiring less water, pesticides, and fertilizers, decreases the threat of wildfire by supporting normal levels of fuel loading, and represent elements of a region's natural and cultural heritage. And whereas the cost of invasive species control and damage remediation reach $138 billion yearly in the United States, and whereas the town adopted its first ordinance against invasive species in 1999, and since that date has prohibited the use of invasive species as a method of complying with land use ordinance provisions for shading and screening. and has disallowed the inclusion of invasive species in any plans submitted in support of a land use permit application. And whereas on January 24th, 2017, the Town Council accepted the Community Climate Action Plan, which in part encourages the protection and enhancement of ecosystems. And whereas the town holds volunteer events to remove invasive species from municipal parks and has updated the town code to allow native plantings throughout managed natural landscapes. And whereas the town has encouraged the use of native species through educational film screenings, outreach events, and pollinator plant and milkweed seed giveaways through the Bee City USA and Mayor's Monarch Pledge initiatives. Now, therefore, I, Barbara M. Foushee, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim February 26th through March 3rd, 2024 to be Invasive Species Awareness Week in Carrboro. I encourage residents to join in an upcoming campaign to identify and remove invasive species throughout Carrboro. This, the 27th day of February 2024. Ms. Janway, would you like to have a few words? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to recognize that this week's Invasive Species Awareness Week, and the town has a big educational campaign this week. We want everybody to learn about 6 really aggressive invasive species throughout Carrboro and help us identify them, and wherever you find them, take a picture and stay tuned. As the mayor mentioned, we do hold volunteer events to remove invasive species in town parks, and we'll be really excited to offer those throughout the next few months. Thank you all.
Thank you, Laura. Announcement of upcoming meetings. Town Clerk Wendy
Good evening,
Welsh.
Mayor and council members. We have a few upcoming meetings. Starting with tomorrow, February 28th, the Board of Adjustment will have their meeting at 7 p.m. here in the Town Hall Council Chambers. On Monday, March 4th, the Human Services Advisory Commission will have a hearing at 6 p.m., and that will be virtual. And then we have our next Town Council meeting on Tuesday, March 5th.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Yeah, Thursday, the 29th, is a virtual Chapel Hill Transit Partners meeting from 10 till noon.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to public comment. These are items that are not part of our agenda tonight. We have 3 public hearings. I will call you up. You will have 3 minutes. Please address your comments to the council. And we will start with, I'm sorry, Gretchen, can you pronounce your...
It's Gokenauer.
All right, Gretchen Gokenauer. Gokenauer. Welcome.
Right.
Welcome.
Pleased to be here. I live at 207 Blue Ridge Road. A land gift by the developers of 4 neighborhoods, Waverly Forest, Fair Oaks, Spring Valley, and Webwood, as required by the Carrboro Land Use Ordinance of 1976 to roughly 1988, is now open space to the public and deeded to the town of Carrboro. These 3 gifted land parcels for a total of 6.82 acres are now being surveyed for development. I want the council to know, and all citizens of Carrboro to know and aware, that this is public open space. This public land has 100% hardwood tree canopy in the summer, meaning that you cannot see the sun when you look up. It means it's 100% tree leaf shaded. Your feet are standing on soil and crushed leaves under the cool shade of these trees. One of these gifted land parcels touch Blue Ridge Road in the Webwood neighborhood. This is urban forest public path for all neighbors and anyone that wants to walk through there. The parcel is Webwood's only neighborhood open space. Webwood will lose this open space if development happens. Webwood will be the first neighborhood to lose its open space. Webwood will have 0 open space. This is a hardship for Webwood and all of us in Carrboro. My proposal is for this open space gift to become a public, protected, sustainable urban forest. Open spaces, tree sustainability, and urban forestry stewardship protects against land degradation by human construction activities, plus it slows down storm water. We need these trees. Trees sequester the carbon that we're putting into the atmosphere. Trees use the sunlight to produce oxygen for all of us to breathe. This oxygen and this cool shade support all of our needs for wellness. This is photosynthesis, the miracle of plants. Plants do not speak, but they do form communities of nature. I am befuddled by the Carrboro wanting to cut down these trees and lose these open spaces. We need nature depending on our mutual resources and the web of natural systems that sustain all of our life on Earth. And I have proposed pictures, and I have put together a portfolio to help you with this. And I hope that you all love to read it. Pictures and everything from Webwood is in here.
Thank you.
Pictures of wildlife, and I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have William Biggers, Aberdeen Court. William Biggers, welcome.
I am William Biggers. I'm from Chapel Hill, born and raised. They played Pee Wee baseball out there. Was deputy sheriff for 10 years here, and grew up with Braxton, working with my dad at the hospital. So I'm from this area, been in this area, and lived in this area, raised kids in this area. I came to you about 5 years ago about a concern about neighborhood traffic being too fast on our streets. We share the same speed limit as downtown Carrboro, 25 miles an hour. But the difference is we have no sidewalks. I walk my dog, get exercise in the roadway. What is proposed in our neighborhood is a population increase of density of automobile traffic. If a 30 unit or plus unit building is built in the backside of our neighborhood, it will have to funnel to the major thoroughfares through our neighborhood. 30 units, 2 cars per unit. That's 60 more cars traveling down the road. We put in speed bumps, doesn't slow the cars down. They had to remove the ones that were really working and redo them 3 times. I am concerned about the kids in the neighborhood, the people in the neighborhood, the older folks that are in the neighborhood that walk these streets, and now they're going to be having to deal with 60 more cars traveling through the neighborhood to go from Pathway Drive to get out to Hillsborough Road. And that's very concerning to me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Biggers. Next, we have Jane, and I'm not gonna. Jane Danielitz, come on up. Jane Danielitz, welcome. Mhm. Jane Danielitz.
My name is Jane Danielwitz. Wait, I guess it doesn't matter which one. And I live at 110 Waverly Forest Lane in Carrboro. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council members. My comments refer to the 3 parcels of town-owned land off Pathway Drive. I will demonstrate existing stormwater problems that need to be considered before any development proceeds. I and others in the community would like to read the engineering and site analysis report from Summit Design as soon as it is received by the town. Will that report and its conclusions be made available simultaneously to the town and to the public? Please confirm. We want to have input in the process before it goes to the planning department, before the town expends money on any potential development plans. I'm going to show this video. You will see our homes along Waverly Forest Lane at the bottom of the steeply sloped pathway parcels that are subject to flooding. The video shows a subterranean spring that daylights when stormwater runs down the steep slope and raises the water table. At the end, you will see the stormwater ditch that flows through our neighborhood and floods regularly, coming down from MLK Park and finally feeding into Spring Valley. Go ahead. It's 2 minutes. It goes fast. Fast.
Thank you so much for sharing that video and your comments. Thank you. Susan? Is that Susan? McDaniel. Susan McDaniel, come on up.
Hello, council and community members. I live on Westview Drive in Carrboro, close to the proposed site of a 5 to 6 story building between, I can't remember the name of the neighborhood, where there are some rental homes in 2-story buildings, and Westview Drive. And I have major concerns about putting the tallest buildings pretty much in Carrboro in an area that has nothing taller than 2 stories. I am wondering what the flood problems that this may create are, and the effect on property values in our area, and then all the construction mess, possible damage to Tom's Creek, and that general area. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. I appreciate it. So that ends the public comment portion that is not related to 1307 West Main, although we did just hear from Ms. McDaniel on that item, which is fine. Manager Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members. The first item on the consent agenda is a budget amendment for professional services. This is to approve a budget amendment designating $55,972 of non-departmental funds for a cost share agreement to support engagement and master plan design services for the jointly owned Green Track. The second item on the consent agenda is appointments to the Economic Sustainability Commission. This agenda item is for the town council to make reappointments to the Economic Sustainability Commission. This does not include any new appointments.
Thank you, Town Manager Parker. I want to entertain a motion for.
To move the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Now, second, please.
Seconded.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Frey. It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda carries. Back to you, Town Manager Parker. Thank you.
The first public hearing we have tonight is for modifications to the stormwater rate structure. To hold a public hearing, this is to hold a public hearing on potential modifications to the stormwater rate structure to fund a new residential assistance program. Randy Dodd, our stormwater utility manager, is here to provide a brief presentation and will be available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. While Mr. Dodd is coming up, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. We will hear from town staff.
All right, great. Do you affirm that you are evidence that you shall give in the board is action, and shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. So we'll hear from town staff, we'll hear from the public, and then the council will ask questions and discuss and maybe make a decision. Mr. Dodd, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight I'm here to introduce item related to a proposed rate amendment to the stormwater rate structure, specifically with the intent of supporting a new residential assistance program, which we presented to you back on January 9th, I believe it was. Just say a few words of introduction here. The program design has been under development for quite a while, in more earnest in 2023. In the first part of 2023, we did some pilot work where we had a contractor, Mike Dupree, do assessments of 50 residential properties, and that was all described to you back at your January meeting. And then in phase 2 of that, we dove in earnest with Mr. Dupree's assistance and in collaboration with the Stormwater Advisory Commission to design this new program. And so this lays out the time frame for that design work, culminating in your January 9th meeting, and at that meeting you set the public hearing for tonight. The proposed or the recommendation for looking ahead, assuming that that the rate amendment is adopted tonight, is that that we would use this funding to hire one new staff position in the stormwater division, and then this spring we will work in earnest to take this recommendation and incorporate it in our the process of updating the annual operating budget, as well as working with Orange County Tax Office to implement the amended rate structure in time for the summer billing. And then the other following steps are shown here for later in this calendar year, with the intention to try to launch this program by the end of this calendar year. This is just showing, and this is part of the staff memo, showing the impact on the rate structure if it's adopted. I did want to make note that there's actually a typo or an errata in what was provided to you. These numbers here, and I will pull up the document and show you specifically in your resolution. Oh, you've already got it.
Yeah,
Okay, you've already got it. Okay, so I won't pull that up then. So that's essentially the, the recommendation, and that's all I have to say by way of introduction. I'd be glad to take any questions now or at your discretion.
Thank you. I have Solomon Hoffman, and the subject matter is stormwater. Is it on the rate structure? So it's on this item. Okay, so we'll hear from him. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Would you like to affirm or swear? Affirm. You affirm. Okay. Do you affirm that evidence you shall give to the board, the action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Solomon Hoffman. I'm here also with my partner, Lauren Wingenroth. We moved to Carrboro this past May. We bought a house near Toms Creek at 116 Carroll Street. We were aware that this property was located in a floodplain, but we were not aware to the extent of the flooding issues on the property when we bought the house. It flooded 1 month after we moved in with about a foot of water in our lower level, and it flooded again this past January, I think probably the same video that we saw just moments ago. And in speaking with members of the town staff and the council, we learned that this property has flooded something like 8 times in the last 10 years. We wanted to come and express our support for the town's increased investment in stormwater management and flood mitigation, and we support modifying the rate structure to better resource stormwater management programs and to assist homeowners with stormwater issues. But we also wanted to share how this proposed residential assistance program may not be accessible or beneficial for homeowners like us who are facing the brunt of flooding. For one, while our house is vulnerable to flooding from Toms Creek, only a very small amount of the creek is actually on our property. Therefore, we would not be able to initiate stormwater efforts like stream bank stabilization along the creek. While we are hopeful that our neighbors and other residents along the creek will consider these efforts, it would still likely be a significant investment for them, and many of these homeowners don't necessarily experience the same flooding issues that we do. We wish that the town could take more full responsibility for the cost of stream bank stabilization with the consent of the landowners so that we aren't relying on our neighbors to make significant investment that they wouldn't have much incentive to do. We've also been told that other work on the property to manage stormwater issues could be in the mid-5-figure range in terms of project cost, and that even with this cost share program, this may be inaccessible to us and would likely still not address the issue of flooding on our property due to the issues with the creek that I mentioned. We are happy to see this program getting the council's attention, but we hope it is just the beginning of the town's effort to holistically address stormwater issues along the creek. We want to thank Mike Dupree for his work and his generosity of time looking at our property. We'd also like to thank Debbie Schaffner and the stormwater staff, as well as council members Frey and Haven O'Donnell for speaking with us on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Any other members of the public for this item? April Mills, come on up.
Would you like to swear or affirm? Swear or affirm?
Either way.
Affirm, how about that?
Affirm.
Do you affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, council. It's nice to see everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is April Mills. I'm a resident of Carrboro. We all know I'm very passionate about stormwater. I'm glad to see this as an agenda item, so thank you very much. I know, Catherine, you've mentioned it to be passionate for you as well. I do have questions in regards to, the taxes will increase. I understand that. I have no issues with that, and the fees. I don't think it should go to pay someone's salary. I think that should come from the general fund. I think that if we're going to increase a tax, it should go for what it's supposed to be going for, which is remediation. Also, HOAs and other community members have ponds, are responsible for ponds, and there's no way, or there needs to be a way in which those entities can apply for this these funds, right? Or it's a grant, or however that's transported within this documented. It wasn't clear to me how they could qualify. Also, how is an HOA tied to the AMI? It's really not achievable. I believe some of that was around, making sure funds get to the right appropriate individuals, which is fine. We all know water goes wherever it's going to go. But it would be nice to know that anybody within Carrboro could access these funds. So that is what I'm asking for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any other members of the public that would like to speak? Council members, questions for stormwater staff, Mr. Dodd, or should we bring him back up? Have questions for Randy? Or you just,
I just want to underscore what I had said on January 9th about interest in seeing that we create a timeline whereby over time we move from having the enterprise fund paying for staff positions to having the money fully accessible for all folks in Carrboro, and how we figure out how we're going to do that, and ask that that this question be put before the Stormwater Advisory Board to discuss and to bring back, a game plan. I think in the short run, folks don't mind paying the tax to initiate and launch a robust program in stormwater resilience and mitigation, but ultimately, because of the climate change effects that we don't even know what we don't know, we need to ensure that all folks in Carrboro have access as they need. And, I think over time we're going to see the level of need shift, and we don't even know what that is. So being aware that we don't know what we know regarding the frequency and the volume of water that will be in floodways, I would like us to, in addition to looking at this question of the rate structure now, be able to have the vision to understand that it's not going to be sustainable to create a position and to fund a position when folks are needing the assistance here and now.
Thank you, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. And so am I correct in hearing you say, are we just talking about this one position, or potentially could it be all positions, stormwater, that may end up in the general fund, and you're asking for it to be referred to the Stormwater Advisory Commission for discussion?
Correct.
Okay.
And recommendation back to us
Okay.
over time. I mean, this is going to take time, just as launching the utility has taken time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else?
Do we need to close?
Are we going to make a decision?
I move that we approve it.
You need that as a
Yeah.
recommendation, as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, because we're going to need to include that, because I have heard it from a couple of council members about the stormwater staff potentially being moved, the funding potentially coming from the general fund instead of from the stormwater enterprise fund. And so, yeah, I've heard
I'll
it.
move the item with the friendly amendment.
Sure. Motion by Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. Can I get a second, or is there further discussion about that?
Second.
Mayor, a quick question.
Oh, Councilmember Frey.
Thank you. I think it's an interesting idea to explore. I guess my question is whether it makes sense to take it to the Stormwater Advisory Committee now, or whether that is part of our budget discussions that we're asking the town manager to bring us.
Well, either way, I think I would like to hear what the Stormwater Advisory Board has to say, because I know that they've done a deep dive on the budget and looked at how it is over time. So I'd like to be informed by it. And if we could, I don't know, if we could get information back as we're looking at the budget, that would be grand.
And I am pretty supportive of this. I guess the idea is to use the enterprise fund then for remediation projects. So I guess the spirit of the discussion is maximizing the amount of funds for remediation wherever it's most appropriate, sort of in terms of the structure of the utility and things like that. None of which I'm clear on. I would really welcome this agenda item and a discussion around how best to pursue this, but I just kind of want to make sure I understand the goal. Great.
So we have a motion on the floor with a friendly amendment from Councilmember Haven O'Donnell for more exploration and a recommendation from the Stormwater Advisory Commission about the idea of stormwater staff being paid completely out of the general fund, which would allow more funding for capital and operational projects around stormwater within our community, as well as it'll be a part of our budget discussion. Councilmember Frey.
Madam Mayor, a question. Maybe this is a question for the town manager. If we do take this through the Stormwater Advisory Commission first, does that have an impact on us getting timely advice about our budget?
It may or may not impact it, but I do want to interject and just say something about enterprise funds in general. They are to support direct and indirect costs, and it's very common that they're used for personnel related to that program. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, but we'd be happy to bring back information and work with the commission on this.
Well, I wonder, I'm interested in hearing from the board, for sure, the advisory commission, but I wonder if we don't need perhaps the staff proposal first. Just to
that's
just to
fine.
guide. Yeah, if I would rather have staff first, then advisory, just to make sure that we're kind of focusing their comments.
And so I do see here in the agenda item that the recommendation that a decision on the recommended changes occur at this meeting or as soon thereafter to provide ample time for preparation of the fiscal year 24-25 operating budget and incorporation as part of the annual stormwater billing cycle implemented through property tax bills, which I'm sure, everyone has read that and they are aware. So there is a motion on the floor. There is a second from Councilmember Posada. Further comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we will close this public hearing. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Dodd.
Next is one of two public hearings in relationship to 1307 West Main Street. The first is a legislative public hearing on land use ordinance text amendments. This is to consider amending the land use ordinance to modify standards relating to height, residential density, and non-residential uses in the R2 conditional district subject to certain criteria. The request is associated with a petition to amend the zoning classification at 1307 West Main to R2CZ. The council must receive public comments before taking action on this draft ordinance. Tina Moon, our planning administrator, is here with a presentation and will also be available to answer questions.
Thank you, Town Manager Parker. So we'll get ready to go ahead and open the public hearing for this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, it's been a while since we've had a public hearing with some new folks. As mentioned in the introduction, these are two legislative public hearings that are interrelated. And so usually what we do, if I may offer a suggestion for the order of proceedings, is that we structure these such that you open the public hearing and receive a staff presentation on the text amendment. I don't believe that the applicant has too many comments on the text amendment, but you're welcome to jump in and provide comments as needed. And then you may wish to keep that public hearing open and then move to the public hearing for the rezoning, which is where I suspect there'll be more public comment, and then circle back. If you feel with a kind of a straw poll that you're ready to make a decision on the rezoning, you circle back to the text amendment, which is needed for the rezoning, and then you complete that decision-making process. Okay, so we'll jump into the text amendment first. So the applicant, in seeking their rezoning, have identified the R2 conditional district as the new district. They're interested in a building which would be approximately 65 feet tall, about 5 stories. That would exceed the current maximum building height for the R2 zoning district, which is 50 feet. So they have submitted a text amendment request to allow that building height to be increased. A draft ordinance has been prepared. I just want to note, again, as by way of the sequence of the discussion tonight, should the text amendment be approved, this would become part of the land use ordinance, so it would be available to future applications, not just this particular one. This is the language that's in the text amendment. You may notice that we have used this type of a framework for other districts and other text amendments relatively recently, where there's an opportunity to get additional density or additional height in exchange for providing things that are of public benefit. So in this particular scenario, should the council decide to move forward with the text amendment, this would allow, as part of a special use permit, so this would be as part of a public hearing process, the council to allow a multifamily apartment building in the condition, a R2 conditional district, to have an increase in the maximum building height up to 65 feet, to allow for a higher level of density, as well as to allow up to 20% of the building's gross floor area to be used for commercial uses or non-residential uses. As you may recall, during the request to set, there was interest from one of the council members that the building could at some point be converted so that the ground level could be used for commercial use. This is the scenario at Shelton Station. At that point, the R2 zoning district didn't allow that, so that's part of the reason for this particular provision. In terms of what the following building and site components would be, typically when we've done this before, there's an opportunity to select a certain number of a maximum identified benefits. In this example, for this particular text amendment, and I'm pointing this out because I think this is important, where they're asking for essentially another story. At least 20% of the residential uses need to meet the affordability criteria in the ordinance. This is different in that it is a requirement versus the 15% policy goal. So this is a notable difference, as well as at least 2 of the 5 site and building elements related to transportation, stormwater, energy conservation, on-site production, et cetera. And then finally, noting that this could have a potential negative effect in an infill situation, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't a shadow produced by the new building. And this is also an amendment to our existing appendix where applicants are required to show where a building might throw a shadow, and add some clarification that calculation should occur at 12 noon. So that's kind of the conclusion of the staff presentation here. There's comments in your packet, and I'll pause if you have questions for me or if the applicants would like to jump in and add anything at this point.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. Or the applicants are here. Any comments that you want to add at this time? Okay, thanks. I have about 7 people signed up. Most say zoning hearing, conditional rezoning, 1307 West Main. I will take all of you now, and just hear from the public now, because you're finished with your presentation, correct?
Unless you'd rather wait and do the rezoning presentation.
Is this what you, is that the, is you want to do that? Okay, so we'll hold off on the public and just move forward.
We'll just keep moving, okay.
Yeah, just keep chugging. Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll, again, for the public, we'll be moving into the rezoning description at this point.
Have all the information.
So this is the site in question. This is Carrboro. I think everyone here knows where this is, but this is West Main Street, Carrboro Plaza here, the post office. This is the future Shops at Lloyd Farm. And this is the B3 district, and this is my best estimate of the location of the subject property. It's about 1.16 acres. The difference in terms of the potential residential density, even though this is a neighborhood business district, there is the potential now to have residential uses there. That density would be 7,500 square feet. That means land area square feet per dwelling unit. And the proposal would be to increase that to approximately 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit, conditional. With the use of the text amendment, that could potentially get even more dense. I think we've had a number of conditional rezonings over the years, but just to be clear for everyone, a conditional rezoning involves the adoption of an illustrative site plan, as well as conditions. And so should you move forward with the rezoning, the conditions and the site plan is considered a condition are binding as the project moves forward to the subsequent permit phase. In this case, that subsequent permit would be a special use permit A, which would come back before the town council with another public hearing. Of note, the main elements of the site, which are identified in the site plan, are the elements of the site plan moving forward. So the phase for the special use permit would focus on land use ordinance compliance and more detail, but the overall components of the project would be determined as part of the rezoning. So if folks have questions or comments, this is the time to make them, not to wait until the public hearing for the special use permit. I will let the applicant come up and do a more detailed review of their proposal, but I want to hit the highlights. So here is West Main Street. Post office is here. The gas station is here. There's a little bit of existing open space that will remain. Many of you know this is kind of the grassy knoll in front of the Berkshire Manor Apartments. There's a bus stop across the street with a new crosswalk. There's another bus stop over here, and then there's some open space here associated with the edge of Tom's Creek. The applicant is showing about 36 parking spaces, including the handicap ones. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've had some questions about the number of parking spaces and is that sufficient? We'll let the applicant speak to that in their presentation. The project, the understanding would be that the parking for the project would be self-contained. This would not be an opportunity for folks to start parking on the street. Parking would have to be handled on site. This would be the ingress and egress would be coming from that existing side street into Berkshire Manor Apartments. They would come into the parking lot here. There is sufficient width here for a two-way aisle based on the ordinance. All of these exact details, again, would be determined as part of the special use permit. Yes, and at this point, the applicant has identified 6 affordable housing units, and we'll touch on that just a little bit more moving forward. So again, rezonings involve a rezoning ordinance or a map amendment ordinance, which include conditions. These are the draft conditions which are part of your packet for tonight. We anticipate that there may be some more discussion about those. You would certainly, for a residential cap, want to choose 38 or 40. We were talking through that a little bit. I think the applicants have expressed a preference for 40. The reason for having a cap is that as they work their way through the special use permit and construction permit process, if they find that they need to make some modest adjustments, this gives them some flexibility so that they don't have to come back and update their rezoning. Again, we've talked about this language for the potential conversion to commercial use on the ground floor. They have included some bicycle amenities, including bike lockers. And we've had some requests for e-bike charging as well as EV charging for vehicles. I think everyone knows at this point that there is a variance associated with this project, and so I'll let the applicants speak to that if they wish to. This is in italics because we had talked about looking at the stormwater requirements in the ordinance and whether there was whether the applicants were interested in increasing the annual storm year. I think that's something that they're still analyzing and have not yet been ready to commit to that. Other improvements here speak to stormwater management. Two other conditions that we discussed, which you may want to talk about some more this evening. The applicants had originally had a condition related to parking at 1 parking space per unit. Staff removed that after the adoption of the text amendments, which imposed a maximum rather than a minimum. Considering that there are currently 36 parking spaces and there's a potential for up to 40 dwelling units, you may want to consider putting that back in, or at least having some discussion about how you would handle that if there were changes in the total number of units. Again, the applicant has identified an interest of providing 6 affordable units. If they use the text amendments, they will be required, for that additional height, they will be required to have 20%. If for some reason they don't use that, you may wish to explore requesting a minimum number of affordable units as part of the project. Again, that final number would be determined during the SUP process unless you lock something in for the rezoning. The policy analysis is in the staff report. I realize this is a little bit hard to see now that we have the comprehensive plan. We did go through this, and thanks to other staff for assisting with this. But to take a look at how this project fits within our comprehensive plan. And I'll give you a moment just to read through this.
Tina, would you mind reading this for the folks who are in the room?
Sure, and this is in the agenda packet in the staff report for those folks who have that online.
Thank you so much.
This just goes through the recently adopted comprehensive plan in terms of affordable housing. I'll just read it. Where the applicant has committed to provide at least 15% affordable units. That's what the cool. Thanks. To provide at least 50% affordable units, and actually to potentially exceed that. We just talked about that. Maybe not quite Civic. Okay, we'll just go with it this way. The development commits to providing additional flood storage. I'll let the applicant speak to their stormwater management plan. I will note that the town engineer is present if you have questions for him. In terms of transportation and mobility, the site is closely located to 2 transit stops, and the applicant has expressed interest of potentially putting in another bus stop. We'll check with Chapel Hill Transit to see if that is something of interest. Certainly some more innovative uses for bicycle storage. The inclusion of the 2 to 5 site and building elements I think will likely fit under this classification as well. While the rezoning would take land out of commercial classification, this is actually a rather important one in terms of land use. the potential to have that ground floor in some future time be converted to some commercial use retains some of that commercial component. There's been some conversation about open space and park use. We'll let the applicant speak to that a little bit. There is an area dedicated for open space that is included in the site plan. Again, for rezoning, the site plan is usually more conceptual. The specific details are determined as part of the special use permit process. And then finally, in terms of land use, it is in close proximity to transit, existing bike and pedestrian facilities. The reduced parking meets the goals of some affordability in terms of that unbundling, and as well as a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So we're still finalizing that commitment to affordable housing, but the applicants have expressed a willingness to do that. And then finally, as part of this, we did notice that there was that one parcel was labeled as parkland. We suspect that we just missed that was probably something done with, aerial photography, and we just missed that. So we will correct that if the rezoning is to go forward. And then finally, sorry, the title got a little wonky here. This is a little bit of a repeat. Your advisory board comments are in your packet. Not all boards had quorum, so not everyone made comments, but what we have are provided for you. A quick review of the conditions already. Conditions 2 and 3 discuss the maximum number of units. Again, 38 or 40, we would want to identify that and have that in the ordinance. Condition 4 speaks to the transportation amenities. 5 through 8 speak to stormwater. And then the 2 that you may wish to talk about further to clarify the number of parking spaces, and then potentially to set a minimum number of affordable units. And with that, I will stop talking. The consistency and the draft ordinance are in your packet when you reach the point that you're ready to discuss those. And if you're ready, we might, unless you have questions for me.
No questions right now, Thank you. I am going to take some. Oh, did you want to come up now?
Whenever you are ready.
Oh, you can. Yeah, that would be all the information. Yeah, you can come up now if you would like. Thank you, Tina. Appreciate it. And then we'll get to the public comment for these 2 items. Thank you.
Thank you all for having us here tonight, Mayor Fishy and council members and staff and public that's here. I'm Jim Spencer with JSA Architects on Brewer Lane in Carrboro, and we're excited to present this project. We've been kind of a long road, as most of you know. We presented a concept plan for this project in May of 2021, and I've been working with staff for.
Could you hold on for 1 second?
Yes, ma'am.
Not you, but I'm hearing some chatter from the audience. I'm just asking that you please be quiet until it's time to come up for public comment so we can hear everybody. We could just do that. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Spencer.
Thanks. So I'm here representing Alan Knight and Eric Lynch. Unfortunately, are not here tonight due to a long-planned previous commitment, but I have a lot of our team here. Besides me, Ryan Fitzsimmons with my office is here. Chad Abbott is our civil engineer. He's worked on many projects in Carrboro. David and Terry Swanson, many of you know from Swanson Landscape Architecture in Carrboro. We have Jeff Rylick, who's our energy consultant here. And I think I hit everybody. Leanne Brown is here, our counsel. Again, we're very excited about this project. We understand this is not an easy project. We're hoping that the long time that the town has worked on a new comprehensive plan for the town starts to be realized in physical form now. It's all of us have been here long enough through the Vision 2020 process and now Carrboro Connects process. Understand that for Carrboro to meet its climate goals and its sustainability goals, it has to get a little bolder and more dense. There's a need for a lot of housing in this town, and to have a housing that is quality, construction, local team that understands the area and complies with a lot of these goals of the comprehensive plan is where we are. And so I'm glad to be bringing this project to you finally in this public setting. The comprehensive plan states clearly in our mind that denser development along existing transit corridors that have a minimal need for additional infrastructure is what needs to happen in this town. There's not many sites to do it. Let's be absolutely clear. There's not a lot of greenfield sites. There's redevelopment sites, and there's these type of sites that are adjacent to existing commercial development are not especially against a lot of single-family development. So we have to make some choices as a town, and that's why we're here. We've been working closely with the staff, I feel like, for these 3 years to work through the difficult issues on this site regarding density, height, stormwater measures, sustainability, transportation options, all the things that have to go into a project like this. I feel this project is extremely reasonable fit size-wise for this site, leaves a tremendous amount of open space on the site. But in order to do that, we have to go up and be denser. That's just how it has to be if you're developing sites like this in Carrboro. Key points of the project, and then I'm just going to run through a brief presentation. Many of you have seen either at the joint boards meetings or concept plan or other meetings before. As Tina mentioned, 34 to 38 units is our goal. A lot of that number is based on keeping the footprint of this building as small as we can in order to preserve all the area down near Toms Creek as open space and revegetated space. That number we feel comfortable allows us opportunity to go beyond the town's affordable housing requirement from the 15 recommended % to the 20 that we're proposing. And we're not offering to maybe do that. We've said we will meet the 20% of however many units we go between 34 and 38 will be affordable units. And again, a lot of projects that have happened before, because I've been working here a long time, have been payment in lieu or some other options. So putting some actual affordable units on the ground, I feel like is very important to the town. We feel comfortable with our parking number, and having done some marketing analysis and all that, the people that want to live in these areas of Carrboro will use alternate transit methods. We're committed to a new bus stop if Chapel Hill Transit agrees to it, covered bus stop on the site. We'll have bicycle lockers for each resident and a space per unit plus accessible spaces. We'll have extensive revegetation of the site, more native species trees and vegetation. David Swanson, our esteemed landscape architect, will see to that. So I'm going to run through and try to hit the high points of this, and you guys ask questions after we're done, and I want to leave time for everyone to speak here. This is how it works in Carrboro, and we're really respectful of everybody's opinion that's going to have comments about density, height, stormwater, whatever. But again, we feel like the time is now for a project like this. I mentioned most of these key features, so I won't dwell on them. The 5-story height, we kind of feel that on a redevelopment site like this, where the site is not in a location that can shade other buildings near it because of its location on the street, provides a good place for additional height. And again, every piece of density we put into the building takes it away from the footprint of the building and allows more open space and more green space on the site. The stormwater management, we all know, very important subject, and you know, not coincidentally, we're just talking about it on another item. It's time to be really serious about it in Carrboro, as in everywhere in the world. This project has been carefully engineered with stormwater control measures. A lot of the areas along Toms Creek are, you know, just development that happened pre-ordinance regulations for stormwater, to be honest. And so you have a lot of development that's already occurred in the town. In this case, you know, Carrboro has extremely strict stormwater ordinances that we have to comply with. They're stricter than the state ordinances. Chad and the town engineer, they've spent a lot of time going back and forth on this item to make sure that not only can we detain, but we can treat all the stormwater on our site. You know, it's an important item, and I expect a lot of discussion on it, but I will assure you that you know, the site's going to be engineered to control all of our stormwater on the site. That does not mean that no house in Carrboro along Toms Creek will never flood again. Some of this development, again, has happened before this, and we can control the stormwater on our site and do it according to this ordinance, but we cannot control stormwater off our site. The sustainability is a big thing for our firm in design, and I feel like our developers are also very committed to that. Eric, his background is in solar design and solar technology, and Alan's been as a green builder who works with a lot of sustainable methods. Jeff is here to help us pursue Passive House on this, which is really all about energy usage and controlling the amount of the efficiency of your structure. And then transportation will be a main thing, as already discussed, make sure that there's other ways to travel to and from this site in addition to just vehicular or car vehicular. I'm gonna keep going. So kind of ran through all those. This was the slide from our original concept plan, just kind of showing the site and kind of pointing out also that the number of different not only zoning districts but uses adjacent to this site, and you know, it is really a redevelopment site. We feel that the mound that's there is really the spoils of grading probably from originally from the Berkshire West Apartments or some other project. I'm not blaming them because we don't know that for certain, but it's been developed with that, and that development in fact changed a little bit of the storm plane there, the special flood hazard area, by creating a difference in grade between the ground near Toms Creek and where the building will be set, which is quite a bit higher than that. You all know the kind of corner there and the large willow oaks that are on that corner. We've been kind of roundabout over the years on how to work the building along that streetscape and keep some of those willow oaks, but also probably revegetate with more appropriate street trees that fit Carrboro and will last longer. As you probably know, willow oaks have a limited life, and these are old trees. This is just a view of the street front of the building. I mean, the idea is to have a building that it's got a lot of variety in the facade, and has some interest on the kind of gateway west side of the entry into Carrboro on this side. It's a relatively tall building. It's not it's the height of the hotel essentially. And again, when Carrboro rewrites its ordinance to match up with the comprehensive plan, things may be different, and that will happen soon, but it's not here now, and so the mechanism available for a project like this is a conditional rezoning. Again, with more suburban models of development all around this building, including Carrboro Plaza, a lot of single-family development, a two-story apartment complex with, a dozen buildings or however many Berkshire has. We feel like this is a good opportunity to develop this site more densely. Here's the site, and you can kind of see that where the contour lines are close together there is where the topographic difference between the area along Toms Creek and the building pad area is. All the trees along Toms Creek that vegetate that area and some of those willow oaks you see there will be retained in the plan. You saw the site plan from Tina earlier, and just a couple quick things to point out about it. The gray band that crosses kind of serpentine across the site there would be a footpath. There is some pedestrian traffic that happens from the Berkshire Apartments and points south to Main Street there, and we want to allow that to be maintained, but it will all be pervious surface on this portion of the site. The areas to the south of the site plan here are our stormwater control measures on the site. That's I've got Chad here to answer questions about it, but again, it's a combination system which has some bioretention and a filter system. It has regulations under the town ordinance to treat that stormwater and to control how quickly it's dissipated from the site. The area shaded there, is the area that in the design that we got the variance for. The variance was simply to allow a portion of our underground stormwater control measure to be in the flood hazard area. That is still outside of the 100-foot riparian buffer that the town has adjacent to Toms Creek. There's a 50-foot buffer and a 100-foot buffer, not in either of those. It's just that the efficiency of having the way the water moves on the site and being able to dissipate it slowly dictated that was a good place to put it. We had a unanimous vote from the Board of Adjustment for a variance for that piece of the project. It's kind of the same. David has provided us with these sketches just to kind of show you the vegetation on the site and the revegetation on the site and the percentage of the site that will be covered by construction and building versus plants and revegetation. So this is kind of the existing vegetation on the site, the ring of willow oaks, and the kind of fairly dense tree vegetation along Toms Creek. This is a kind of a schematic design, and again, it's schematic, and as Tina pointed out, we're in conditional rezoning process here, and some of these details to be worked out, the finer elements of them in the SUPA. But just to illustrate that we're committed to revegetating the site as much as we can. So you've got a little grid there. The existing trees to be retained along Toms Creek and at the corner of the site, and then more native and appropriate trees and grasses and smaller plants on the rest of the site. You essentially end up with a developed about 42% developed area on the site and 58% open space and revegetated. That's just kind of an illustrative site plan of that, showing the kind of that path kind of weaving through this revegetated area on the east of the site. This is just some language about potential plantings. And there was some interest in the joint boards meeting about the types of plants and knowing we have the landscape architect of the botanical gardens here that I think will make sure that the plans are appropriate and meet the ordinance requirements. These are just unit. I won't spend any time on these. Just illustrative of what the building may look like. It's not final details, obviously, but it is massing and roughly number of units and roughly height. These are, again, some just illustrative renderings of the site. These are renderings from the site plan. The staff asked us to do this section through to just, it's really, I think, to end up illustrating that the sun will not cast a shadow on buildings surrounding it because we're on the street front there. We're also a little bit off the street, so there. The other two are just renderings of the building at this point. I believe that is it. I guess I should go to previous or something. So I'll be happy to answer any questions the council has now, or we can have public comment, and I can come back up as you need me. And again, I have my engineers and landscape architect for other questions.
We'll hear from the public, and then we'll call you back up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
First on the list to speak is Alan Spalt. Come on up.
Do I need to be sworn? Good evening, Ms. Mayor and members of the council. I'm Alan Spalt. Susan and I have lived at 300 James Street since 1984. I'm a former member of this board, and this is our home. I only found out about the zoning issue on Friday, so my exploring of what the implications are is not been complete. But I'd like to talk about two things. One is height, and one is variances. The proposal to increase the allowable building height from 50 to 65 feet, that's what the proposal is. And why is it? To increase density. And boy, it does that. I thought it was 17 times as much as what the neighbors are, but it's actually more than that, because tonight we find out that it might be up to 40 units. I know that suburban densities are passé, but across the street on Simpson and James Street, there are 20 zones. R20, as far as I could tell, wasn't mentioned in anything in the packet, but that's what they are. And if you're surprised to see R20 mentioned, it's because I couldn't find it. Perhaps it was to create a feeling that all the areas around there are more dense than they are. They're all allowed to build additional dwelling units. And what does the public think about this? I don't think we know. There was a neighborhood information meeting held by the developers on March 1st, 2022. Hundreds of letters were sent out to folks within 1,000 feet. 9 people signed in. 9. Looking at their addresses, it seems that only 4 were from the neighborhood. Others were from the other side of town or were real estate folks. Most letters went to Berkshire Manor apartment renters, but they don't have a long stake in what happens. Why so little turnout? Well, it was when we were all recovering from COVID. People didn't go to meetings, not extra meetings. That's it. frustrating. Much has been made that the building will not cast a shadow, but shadow is not the only impact. As was stated in Attachment D of the packet, the size and scale of various uses are also important to whether they can compatibly coexist with existing residential neighborhoods. The goal of affordable housing on a bus route is worthy and important, and I don't want to knock it. But this proposed change to make a disproportionate building fit on a 1 acre lot, is akin to using a shoehorn, and it doesn't fit. I'd like to say one thing about variances. I think that this variance for the stormwater at this complex is probably a good thing. But I was shocked when I read it because in the years that I was on the Board of Adjustment, we didn't do variances. Now the law has changed and it allows them. If we can have a variance for this building and this stormwater, you know, that's one thing that Bart Owl Creek neighbors know a lot about is stormwater. We had somebody come up earlier, a new neighbor, who said that they're being flooded. We know houses that are flooded every heavy rainstorm by 3 different owners, and these get passed on. So maybe variances can work for some of these folks. It's not a problem for us personally, but it is a problem for neighbors and for this community. And we have been talking about it for years, decades, and it hasn't happened yet. So maybe one thing to do with your stormwater funds is to help people get variances to really get work done. Because right now what they're told is you can't do anything. You can't dig. You can't make new drains. You can't make culverts of the size that they're supposed to be because of downstream effects. It's time that these stormwater effects really get dealt with. They haven't been so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spock. Next, I have Phyllis Fleeterbaum. Did I get it? Fleeterbaum? Close enough. Good. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I did not really make any formal presentation notes or anything, but I have my neighbor, Susan McDaniel, right there, and she said pretty much right down the street from me on Westview Drive, basically what I would say, and I am very, very concerned about the Toms Creek flooding. This is a lot of density to put, and now for the first time I hear up to 40 units. It was 34 in the first piece of paper I've seen about this that I just got about a week ago. So I'm very, very concerned about the density, the stormwater. It's the first time I ever heard that we're expecting these new tenants, if this ever gets built, to use alternative forms of transportation. So that means no parking. Bicycles or maybe a few electric cars or whatever. Now I think we have something in effect that it's 1 parking space per, is that not true?
1 parking space per unit.
Per unit. So it was supposed to be 34 units, now it can go up to 40. If you have 40 cars, up to 40, well, what is it? 60-something cars, but 34 units, 68 cars. Are you excavating under the building to put parking? Well, you can't do that because of stormwater. So has there been an environmental impact study, which is what we used to call it back in the late 80s, early 90s, I don't know what it's called now, to figure out what these effects are. Stormwater is a big deal in Carrboro, as you all know. And our little ditches in front of our houses in Westview Drive flood regularly. And so, as a person who's lived here since 1980-something, God, I don't even know, it's so long, I'm just very concerned. And I'm very glad that I have this opportunity to talk, but I'm not used to talking publicly, and I didn't prepare anything, so forgive me. But it's a big deal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next, I have Justin Allen. Justin Allen. And then Chad Abbott after Justin Allen.
Hello. My name is Justin Allen. I live at 211 Carroll Street, and I have concerns about this building. For one thing, we already have problems with through traffic on our street. Carroll Street has a sign that says it's not a thoroughfare, but to many it is. And so that's my concern. I have two small children. There's a lot, the young families and elderly are the two top demographics in the neighborhood, and we don't have a sidewalk. And so you see people in walkers, you see small children. This is going to increase the cut through on our street quite a bit. Also, I'm going to say that I was a renter in Carrboro all through my 20s. It strains credibility that one space per unit is going to be enough. Try renting one of these apartments on one salary. Like couples are going to be living in them. People have friends who have cars. I just give me a break. Also, on a brief separate note, please take a look at the MLK Park equipment. It's very boring for my children. It's not in good repair. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Appreciate it. Next, we have Chad Abbott. Oh, so you're not, okay. And then I have Tom Wiltherger. He knew who it was. Come on up. Thank you.
You were close. It's Wiltberger. Thank you.
Say it again.
Wiltberger, Tom Wiltberger.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I've been a downtown Carrboro resident since 2001, and I'm a homeowner here since 2004. I participated in the chamber, on the board, and I practice real estate in the area. I'm actually here to encourage you to support the project, unlike the previous speakers. I think the applicant made some great points that it's well sited on a transit corridor. It doesn't require any additional infrastructure, roads, driveways can immediately connect to sewer. So this is kind of a low impact infrastructure project. The comprehensive plan says we need density, and we need density in town. And the way to do that is through infill and through going up. So I hope you support the rezoning law for, the rule for increasing the height allowed in this site. But from a real estate standpoint, my big reason is we need housing. And we've talked about that earlier in the meeting. And we need missing middle housing. This town is primarily comprised of single-family homes and rental apartments. We have very little in the middle in terms of condominiums, townhomes, or smaller homes that people can afford. Houses in town have gotten very, very expensive. And by putting a condominium building here like this and adding, whether it's 34, 36, whatever homes all at once, it'll allow people to buy in Carrboro that couldn't otherwise do that. We also need new housing. The average age of a house in Carrboro is 35 years, built in 1988. And not everybody wants to take on purchasing an older home and dealing with that maintenance. We also need one-level condominiums. I spoke to this board early last year on a similar note, and that is that one-level condominiums, the last building that went up in Carrboro that had one-level elevator-served condominiums was the 605 West Main building in 2005, which delivered 7 condos to the market. One-level condos help people who wish to downsize, who might be mobility restricted. Young professionals that don't want to do the maintenance will purchase condominiums. By putting a building like this here, we're going to attract people to town that we can't otherwise attract, and encourage them to live here. So I hope you give the project your support. I hope you pass the height increase, and we can approve tempo. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Are there any other members of the public to speak? Come on up, Miss Diane Robertson, and then you come on up after her.
Diane Robertson. I live at 405 Waterside Drive in Spring Valley, and I had not planned to speak today. I've already spoken once at a government meeting, but I just want to highlight the things that I think are concerning to the current residents who live here, which is the new vision that is being presented by this kind of development. And as Alan said, about where we were between 2020 and 2022, most of us were in our homes trying to stay alive and not paying a lot of attention to the public works that were going on. But clearly, this body was very busy putting out a comprehensive plan, which did not follow any kind of statistical representative sampling to determine whether or not that comprehensive plan really was representative of the concerns and issues of the community. So what I see happening, and I just think you've all said the quiet part out loud, those who support the project and the comprehensive plan, is that this town is about to become a very different geographic community where single-family homes will be redeveloped into multifamily homes on existing lots, because as noted, there aren't any other properties. This is the second most densely populated town in the state. Used to be the first. There's not much else that can be developed unless you add on to the current properties that are here, or you tear down the properties that are here and develop them into something else, which can happen. But I just think that the community that's sort of wrestling with what is the solution, what problem are you solving here? Everybody can't live in Carrboro. The streets cannot have capacity. Every multi-dwelling family that moves here, until you have this wonderful mass transit that doesn't exist, is going to be using cars to go places. So the concerns of those residents who live on streets that have become thoroughfares, through traffic, that don't have sidewalks, I want to age in place here too, and I hope to, but the accommodations that are being presented are pretty extreme. And I'm hoping what I saw was just a concept plan, because the hulking, what I call shipping container architecture that has taken over this area, one block after another, undermines the total understanding of the vernacular architecture that this community was built around. You know, Carrboro, people want to come here because it is, but you want to make it something else so that it isn't. And I just wanted to put that out there, that I think that we need to really understand as a community where you're all taking us.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. I think there was, yes, come on up. State your name, please.
My name's Gretchen Gokenauer, and
you spoke earlier?
Yeah, I'm
on
sorry.
This, so you already spoke on this matter?
Not on this matter. I just have maybe a question that I can call city planning for, but I just want to know how you can make a zoning change and a permanent land use for the future change at the same time and in one public meeting. You don't have to answer it now, but I just am concerned that you're doing two things at once with one vote. And the other thing I have become aware of is the public information on these projects is very, very low. I go to your website, and I want Carrboro to know about your website, because you explain everything on your website, but not everybody goes to the website. I also know that Carrboro is only 33% home ownership. So when you say in this building, you can't decide yet whether you're going to be a rental occupied or an owner occupied condo. I don't understand why you can't define that better. I also don't think the parking is sufficient. I have been in Baltimore. We had parking on slim streets during snow emergency routes. If you shoveled your space open and somebody entered your space, there were fights. I also, well, I guess that's about it. But there are 8% of Carrboro is vacant. I have in my green folder a list of 3 properties adjacent to my neighborhood that are vacant. 1700 North Greensboro and 2 other ones. And so please look at those, and please look at the, like I said, 8% of Carrboro has vacancies. And maybe you can do community bank loans with property owners to improve properties that already exist, or take properties that are aging out of the market and build there and let those people move back in. There are apartments on Bim Street, and in the past, they were renovated, but the people that rented there before they were renovated could not move back in because they raised the rents too high. So there are so many ways to approach this problem of housing, and I think everybody in the community should be involved with that. All business sectors, all public people.
Thank you so much for your comments. Any other members of the public? I see this gentleman, and then you, and then here. So come on up with the mask. Yes. Your name?
My name's Amanda Klepper. I live at 1102 West Main Street. So I'm a neighbor and a homeowner, and I want to say something to support the project and the rezoning. I think it's true that Carrboro does need housing. When I was going to move here with my family, we were worried we wouldn't be able to find any place in Carrboro because there were so few houses coming onto the market and few places available. We need to have more units and more variety of units and more affordable units. So I think that projects like this are going to be a great way to do that, to have density that's in town where people can walk to things rather than sprawling outward in a way that's less efficient and takes up more green space. I think having the text amendment is going to provide Carrboro with a great tool for creating that density while also getting some public benefits like affordable housing, and stormwater and transportation benefits that were listed in there. And just as a resident of West Main Street, I'm pretty excited to see some activation happening at that end of the street, to see more people living there. I appreciate the design and the way that they are creating, wider sidewalks in front, I think was part of the design, the bus stop, the path, the vegetation on the stream, the affordable housing provision. And I'm looking forward to having more people down at that end of the street. I think, my hope is that with more people on West Main Street traveling into town, that'll provide an impetus for better sidewalks on West Main, better crossings, better bus service, which are all things that West Main is greatly in need of. I hope to see this approved and see more projects like this.
Did you say your last name was Klepper?
For Klepper.
That's what I thought. Thank you for your comments. Hold on, Mr. Biggers. Was there someone else in the back? Can you come up? And then Mr. Biggers, you come up after.
Hi, I'm Tom Wisnett. I live in Pacifica in Havana Street and helped get that community started. I used to own that land there where Pacifica is now. I just want to talk about a couple things. I'm thinking about affordability, and I'm sitting here going back in my mind, looking at some similar projects to this, similar in size. Hillmont condominiums at 124 Fidelity Street, which I manage and have managed it for many years. About 20% of the people there have no car. So there are a lot of people in Carrboro who are carless, either by economic pressure not to be able to afford a car or just choosing not to have a car. So I think there are people here who choose to not have a car. Durham just got rid of their parking requirements, where you can do a project like this in Durham, you don't have to have any parking at all. So I think we need to change our thinking about the automobile. As far as affordability goes, Hillmont units used to sell for $35,000, and they would sit there for months with nobody buying them. Bardell Estates, Bardell Creek, those houses when I first got in real estate, and Tom, you may remember this, Tom Wiltberger, my colleague, my real estate colleague, those houses were $150,000 or sometimes less, and they'd sit on the market for months and months and months sometimes. Now, last house I sold there sold for over $500,000, which was kind of surprising to me, but we got an offer $30,000 above the listed price within about a day. This project that we're talking about, 40 units, would fill up in a week if they're available, based on the fact that Hillmont, people wander through there looking for places to rent or buy. The price of Hillmont has gone from $35,000 to about $130,000 now. The price of rents at Hillmont has gone from $350 to $1,100. Part of the reason that rents are so disproportionately high and have grown disproportionately, I think, to about anything else you can compare it to in Carrboro, is we need more density, we need more units. I've known Jim Spencer and Alan Knight for many years. I know they both have a heart for affordable housing. Alan and I have worked together when I worked for Empowerment to create some affordable housing, not because we had to, but because we thought it was the right thing to do. And we built some affordable houses, because we saw the need and we wanted to meet it. So that's basically all I have to say. I want to support this project. I think we need more density. You see fewer and fewer artists, fewer and fewer musicians living in Carrboro every year that goes by because we can't afford it. So I'd like to see you work towards more density and more units on the ground. Thank you.
I'm going to ask one more time, please, can we not have the chatter? Can we do that out in the hallway while people are speaking and trying to listen during this public hearing? Thank you. Mr. Biggers, come up.
As I stated before, I'm born and raised here, 64. 60th birthday on Sunday. So I've been here my whole life. And I've seen the density grow. And I just visited my son in Charlotte over the holiday, where my parents grew up. And I rode through the same neighborhood as I did as a kid. Density is a problem. It's not a solution. You can't travel the roads in Charlotte. It takes 35 to 45 minutes to get around town, where it used to take us 10 minutes to get to Central Hub. We've seen a change in our structure on Main Street, go from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes. 4 o'clock traffic to 6 o'clock traffic. You go around town. You just can't get through town. And I'm just concerned, why do we think that density is a good thing? Town of Chapel Hill, the town of Carrboro, are we going to now change our label to the city of Carrboro? I mean, we're a town. We're supposed to be small, open spaces, small family units, not high density like they're doing in Chapel Hill along the 15501, where they're literally stacking buildings straight up to the sky and killing traffic there. We're going to kill our own traffic here. We won't be able to get around. I understand affordable housing, but it just can't be. There's outer neighborhoods. We're going to have to start expanding outward, not densifying. And that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biggers. Any other members from the public? Anyone else? Come on up. I didn't hear you.
Oh, Eileen Sullivan.
Thank you.
I didn't plan on talking, but, affordable housing has been talked about a lot. And I'm just curious how much these units will go for, not the ones that are, you know, for particular spots that are allotted. But will this help? So if you have condominiums that are very expensive, 500 plus, are they only, the people that have one car household usually are lower income. So I'm just curious about the prices of the low income houses, places.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. So I don't see any other hands up except here in the front. Come on up, Ms. McDaniel.
Thank you again for listening to me. I heard it mentioned that there might be some EV spaces available, and I'm wondering if the infrastructure will be there for increasing those. So is the power that's being brought into the development going to support additional EV spaces? And how will those spaces be allocated? I know there are a number of developments around the area where there is no EV access, even an external 120 volt access that can be used for EV charging at a low rate. So EVs are coming. They're here and they're increasing. And that is an extremely important thing to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. Thank you. Seeing no other hands, council members, are we ready for some questions? Tina or the applicant? Which one? Tina first. Let's start with Tina, then the applicant, or
I have more
questions. Mr. Spencer. Let's start with Mr. Spencer. Come on up, Mr. Spencer. And we know Tina's on standby.
Questions?
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spencer, for coming out tonight. And also, just to note that as I have seen every project that's come before the planning board over the last decade plus, I know what it takes to pull a project that looks like our comprehensive plan out of that ordinance. So just to recognize that you've spent the last 2 years and change working with staff to make this the best project that you can. I do have a couple of questions. I think these are all things that you addressed with the various advisory boards, but if you'll humor us, I think it could be helpful for the public to sort of hear some of the context. I noticed that in the presentation that we've got from Tina, it lists 20% affordable units, and then another presentation says 15%. Is there sort of a question about whether or not you intend, I think, if I understand correctly, the difference between the 36 units and the 40 units does not equal a whole other additional unit of affordable housing at 20%. Is there some question about how many affordable units we end up with? What's your...
From my understanding, the 15% that was referenced in her presentation was a comment that came from the affordable housing staff, and that we've agreed to 20% of our units being affordable. That number just happened to fall, and it said a minimum of 6, so meaning that that will be a percentage based on that. The sliding scale, we really didn't ask for that until we talked about that if we were to increase the number of affordable units, we might need additional units to help offset their cost. It is more expensive to build those units, and so that was the thing. But we've committed in the application and all to 20% of our total units being affordable under the application. So beyond, and that was part of it. Someone mentioned just a moment ago about that part of a rezoning and text amendment process is essentially a trade mechanism in order for the applicant or developer to get more density or a bigger project. They're required to give things to the project that might not be required under the ordinance, and the affordable housing component is one. And so going above and beyond with energy efficiency, stormwater treatment, energy production, those types of things are others that you might give, and we have committed to. They were in Tina's bullet list there.
Thank you. So do I have the math right that that's either 7 or 8 affordable units, depending on how many you construct?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that the sort of higher grade area is probably an old spoil pile. It's had some time to settle over time. Do I understand correctly that your plan shows you sort of reshaping that? So you are doing some grading in the flood hazard way in order to pull that back to outside the 100-foot buffer, and then to address your stormwater infrastructure? Or is the edge of the sort of existing raised area staying where it is currently?
That's essentially, we'll regrade the upper portion of the site only in the sense that we build a retaining wall along that 100-foot buffer and put in good, like, constructed fill that it will, can put a building like this on. The geotech on the site the soil's not very good that was there, probably because it was excavated from another site. So that's the case. The purpose of the variance was to allow that small bit of grading in the shaded area only to install that part of the stormwater control measures. Otherwise, the building, part of the reason to pull the building to the west and out of that was to get it out of that area so that the construction area was outside the 100-foot riparian buffer.
Thank you. We're going to talk here in a moment about an optional proposed condition around parking. You've been in this project since before the town removed its residential parking requirement. So the requirement is now 0 spaces for a fully residential building. But I imagine you did some research in the process on how many cars you expected folks to have, or the percentage of folks who you expected to bring a car.
Yes, and we've done a good bit of market research in it for the type of units we're expecting to have and all. And one of the components of the comprehensive plan, I think, is assuming that there will be some behavioral changes and people that want to live in towns like Carrboro, and that so we do feel we would like to have enough parking for our project here, and we think we do have enough parking for it. Parking includes our car vehicular storage, and it includes our individual bike lockers for every resident, and it includes our bus stop, and includes sidewalk that people can walk to from this place. And many people work from home now, or at least part-time work from home. But also in this place, you can walk within 5 minutes to, the post office, the shopping of various kinds, and all. So I do think people live. I live in downtown where I can walk to work and all. And my wife and I have been sharing one car for 2 or 3 years, and you live a different lifestyle, and that helps with our climate goals. So. We feel it's enough parking. It's a trade again of trading what you feel will meet the market with the development on the site, and we're not trying to build a suburban type of development with a large surface parking lot.
Thank you. My last question, sir, if you don't mind, is about the other sort of italicized potential condition that Tina mentioned, which is about the stormwater commitment. Sort of in the comments from some of the advisory boards, this is discussion about what sort of storm year level is being met.
Right.
Could you give us some context about where you are with that decision, what you are currently prepared to commit to, what's an open discussion with the town at this time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, stormwater is among the biggest issues on the project, and we've had a lot of back and forth with staff about compliance with the town's ordinance for that, which, as I mentioned, is already a stringent ordinance that goes beyond the state's ordinance. But we've also been talking about how do we meet that if we choose one of the items that we choose to meet as additional measures in order to get our density bonus is stormwater control, then we would have to provide additional measures beyond what the ordinance or at least study what those effects would be. Our engineer has, as he explained in the joint boards meeting that some of you saw, that there may or may not be an advantage to running additional storm year models because we're controlling our water on the site and not wanting to discharge into the creek in extreme flood events. So that's a kind of a technicality that he can talk about more if you'd like. We have talked about kind of alternative methods, and a lot of that would probably revolve around our revegetation in the lower part of the site and kind of having suitable plantings down there that would help mitigate beyond kind of an in-ground, a technical solution to the stormwater retention and detention and treatment. So, I mean, we're committed to doing the above and beyond on almost every issue on this project. It's just working out some of those fine details is normally, in my experience, been in the SUPA process, and we're we're 3 years in to the project almost, and don't know if we can do a project on the site at all. And so we'd like to know that we can, and that we will. You've got the commitments in writing in our text amendment and in the conditional zoning for the things we're willing to commit to.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
All right. Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim, for the presentation. I have a couple of quick questions and a comment. Let me just go back. I want to understand at what point will it be clear whether you're looking to build condos or rentals, ownership or rentals?
I don't know, because really the honest answer is financing for sale units is different than financing for apartment buildings, and the owner's intent has been to build for sale units here and have for sale units that go into the land trust as affordable, as that component. You all know kind of how during pre-pandemic and during that condo financing has been very difficult, and so it's I wish I could just tell you 100% that it's going to be a for sale unit, but we're not 100% sure. And I think in a market like this, it makes sense also to build units that could be either one, and constructability wise they could be either one, and so that it's able to change from one to the other in the future if that's what need be. And as Tom and others pointed out, that sometimes there's more market for rent, and some there's for sale. So the intent is for sale, but I can't know for 100% right now.
So we're asked to make a decision in absence of that information.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think so, because the project is a multi-family project, and so it's for housing multiple families. I think that there's a need for units in Carrboro, as people were pointing out earlier. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't understand the necessity to know the difference between whether they're for sale or
Well, I would just say that it's the difference between creating housing stock that could support starter homes to create intergenerational wealth, as opposed to rentals, which are a sieve, which, you're throwing the money away. There's no investment. And I think, we heard a couple of weeks ago from graduate students who were like very excited about the potential for townhomes or condos over in Chapel Hill. But there's no promise that will be. And I don't know how many people who are here, but unless you've got, family money, we're all starting off in some starter space that we're investing in. And I think young folks now are taking longer to get to that point, but the 40 and 45-year-olds I know, who have moved into my neighborhood, that they got to a certain point and they had, they had partners and they were able to buy into, their first home. So, the concept of having a starter home, we talk about missing middle. We're shrinking the middle that exists, and we're not creating stock for starter homes. And that's why, to me, to know whether or not we're talking about something that can be a pathway to ownership, I think is really important. I haven't even heard, you could even think about lease to own. There could be a pathway that way. I'd prefer to hear that conversation than, an up-down on that. From listening to the comments, of folks, one of the things that I'm interested in, and this is on one of your slides, and you showed the elevations, and downtown, where I'm very much in support of the 203 building, which is 3 stories. Downtown is a very different feel, 603 and 203, Carmel, whatever. One of the things that I hear people saying, and I hadn't really thought about this before, but when you look at elevation, 65 feet would be approximately a really tall pine, right? Yeah. And so one of the things that I wonder is, if we can nestle housing 3 or 4 or 5 stories in a tree canopy, it has a very different or human scale feel than without it. And so in looking over your elevation, and I know you talked about taking out those front willow oaks, but it takes a long time for trees to grow. And, even native species are going to take their time. And I guess what I'm concerned about is reflected in the Appearance Commission's comments about the text amendment, because I don't think we've had a conversation about right sizing and human scale and what it means in different places around town. And I'm just raising that question because it's probably more for us than it is for you, but I think it's something we hadn't really considered. So I point out that on the elevation, where you have some rendering of trees, how much tree canopy of the existing mature trees would be left?
Well, you saw on David's drawings, kind of that the tree canopy that's along Tom's Creek would be retained completely. On the western side of the site, pretty much the corner trees, which are the ones kind of in front of, and they're kind of the scale elements or the foreground for the building on that side. There are two of the large ones that would be retained. The other ones, we already, I mean, early in the process, we had an arborist go look at the trees, and there's some that are in decline, and they're in their older age, and their root zones are so extensive that they wouldn't survive the construction. And so the street trees that would be fast growing but would provide that scale element along the street and something that is hardy along the street that has pedestrian traffic and other things, would be replacement. I completely understand your question and their concern. The goal of the project is to put the density and the smallest amount of area on the site in order that eastern part of the site is completely vegetated. That doesn't mean it'll be completely in tree canopy. It may be in native grasses and other things that are worked out to help mitigate the stormwater or other things, and or more compatible along the path. I think that the bottom line is like a lot of the things we've talked about tonight. They're choices that have to be made when you're trying to give additional housing elements in your in your small town, like we said. And I live in a historic neighborhood with tall buildings near me, and part of it has to be, I think that citizenry has to say that it's not all my experience, it's the community experience. And if that person has an opportunity because of a new building, then they'll get to have some of the same experiences as I do in the town. And that might be being able to walk to New Cat's Cradle or to Carrboro Plaza to shop at Food Line. So I get the concern. We feel that this is the type of project that's worth it.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I wanted to point out about because the text amendment is something that we're going to get to, and I want to point out that the Appearance Commission, and I just want to read their comments so that it's in the record. Member feedback from the Appearance Commission relating to the 5-story maximum building height was as follows, and there's 5 points. The text amendment would open up a Pandora's box. Is this text amendment creating the possibility of more 5-story developments in Carrboro? The text amendment could help meet affordable housing and transportation needs in the future. The text amendment will change the look of the town. Members did not want to approve the text amendment if it opens up the possibility of more 5-story developments throughout the town. So I'm bringing this up because it sounds like the Appearance Committee is really asking us to consider that when we make these decisions, we don't have a text amendment that codifies 5-story without it being on a case-by-case basis. So I want to make sure that that's shared, because that's where this feeling of, is it right size, is it human scale, to the experience of the community, I think that's where that comes in.
Could I have a quick response to that? I'll be quick. I'm sorry. I think it's a good point, and we did talk about that. In that, I think that their overall impression was positive of the project. But so the height thing is another thing in the ordinance that I think is a little problematic in the existing ordinance. There's a lot of numbers that kind of maybe don't line up with construction. The goal was we have a much smaller 5th level than other levels in order to create interest and step the building back and have habitable space on the fifth floor. And there's fewer units on that level than there are on the other level. But again, it's to try to minimize that footprint of the building. The 5, I remember the 3 versus 5 story, arguments back in the day, and I guess I will point out and counter that in some of the meetings the planning board had noted at various junctures whether we could go higher than this, and this was a good site to potentially go up beyond that. And I said, well, your ordinance doesn't allow it, but we'll explore that option. 5-story to me is now a precedent in the town that we didn't have previously, so it seemed to be a logical way to mitigate the overall size of the project, because scale is two dimensions. You read scale at the street level primarily, the pedestrian experience and the car experience is at ground level, but it's also the overall size of the building, not just the height.
Good, Red. Good. Go ahead.
Thank you. I did want to share some of the rest of the feedback that the Appearance Commission offered, which is that the location is a great one given the housing needs of Carrboro. The location will cause the least amount of disruption. The new development could possibly help revitalize Carrboro Plaza. And the 5-story building is well designed, and members generally liked this particular project in this particular place. So I think it's perfectly fair to say that the Appearance Commission did smile pretty favorably on this. I think the question of precedent and the broader ordinance needs to be settled by council. But I really do appreciate the aesthetic of this building, and I think I recall the Appearance Commission remarking that it was in keeping with their very high opinion of their standard of your work. And I really appreciate this development, and I appreciate the work that you've done to bring it through the process. And I think that this is really illustrative of the gaps that we have to close up here from behind the dais, because one of the things that we are in a position here on this council is in North Carolina, as many people here commenting know, it's just very hard for us to be in a position where we have to explain and be accountable for our decisions with sort of the looming real estate lobby often. As advocates for affordable housing in this state, it's difficult not to be exposed to criticisms that we are just going to do whatever developers want. 20% is a transformative amount of affordable housing. If we were to get that everywhere that was built, we would be taking steps like beyond what any other municipality dreams of as their best case for adding affordability. This is 3 years of expense to bring that to us is really admirable. And I really appreciate your commitment as a local in putting some values and heart into the project, and, and bringing us what, as you rightly point out, is above and beyond our ordinance. And so I'm extremely enthusiastic about this. And one of the reasons too there is, in keeping with the Carrboro Comprehensive Project, which comprehensive plan received feedback from about 8% of our citizens, as we know, received several awards for engagement in communication and reaching our citizens. I think this really does reflect a broad desire to be able to meet the moment in this town. And I think that the care that you've taken with the aesthetic elements of the project, we are, a small town on the edge of a highly desirable metro area, and threading that needle is difficult. It just is. There are going to be a lot of considerations to balance about the kind of direction, and I think that this is the kind of project that really does it. So thank you is the sum of my comments, and I'll be really looking forward to moving forward both the text amendment and the zoning map this evening.
Councilmember Posada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing the Appearance Commission up. I was wanted to address some of those comments as well, but I won't retouch them. I do want to also highlight that the recommendation from the Affordable Housing Commission is to move forward with this project. And again, as I already mentioned, affordable housing is a huge part of what we need to have here in Carrboro. And I believe the first time I saw this project, I was sitting on the planning board maybe 3 years ago or something. So to see, and we're still not anywhere near done to this, right? So I do thank you for continuing to push these projects forward. I think, again, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, 20% is amazing when we've had to, in previous developments, even fight for 1 unit, right? So, yeah, I want to thank you for the work that you've done in this and responding to community members throughout this whole process and your continued engagement. I would like to see this project eventually become an owner situation rather than a renter situation. I think that's the most ideal part of it. I know that there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I just wanted to express my gratitude, and also as I move forward, please know that at least for me, that is the high priority as we move forward in this for several reasons. But again, we just need it in town. So thank you.
I will say in response that thank you, and I really feel the owner's goal is to have for sale units on this project, and I wish I could just commit to that right now, but that is the plan.
Okay. It's been a journey. I've heard you talk about that. And I appreciate the presentation, the information that's been brought forth, and also hearing from the members of the public with their various concerns. I had just a few questions. On site, there's not a play space on site, is it, like for kids? I know that across the street there is at Simpson.
There is
Park.
that. We're certainly also committed to having a play space on the site. There is some open space to the just to the west of the building, near the old Willow Oaks on that corner, that could be committed to that. And there's also the possibility of kind of intertwining some down on the eastern part of the site. But that's something I talked with staff a little bit about, and so we'd be happy to implement that as a portion of the project too, because I think the goal is to get a diverse group of people living in there, and that might include young families as well. So yeah, that's that would be something that normally would be kind of worked out in the SUPA process, but we can commit to having that element in the project.
Okay, it's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, correct? Is
that
right?
Well, we just don't know yet, but because we have a square footage and we have a number of units, and so the size of the units versus I think the bulk of the units would be 2 bedroom.
Oh,
but there may be a few of the others too, some studios and ones, and a couple threes, not many.
Okay. And then continuing concern about parking and, hopefully working on changing behaviors about moving around in cars. But, we know that people do, and the people that live there will, and folks that may come visit. But how was that a part of your decision making when you thought about the parking? Because people will.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I think parking is a difficult one for any multifamily project, because you're trying to estimate the number of cars that you'll need on site while trying to place a project in a place that requires less vehicular travel. And so our kind of market research showed that for this type of unit in a kind of semi-urban condition on bikeable areas and with bus access and all that, we believe that 1 per can work. And knowing that the residential requirement was going to change, we could certainly put more parking on the site and give up something else, like open space. But we feel the market will, that part will sort itself.
Take care of itself.
Yeah.
So in thinking about going from 50 feet to 65, what happens at 50 feet?
I think.
Like, how would that change what you? I'm just asking for.
I think. I mean, my personal opinion is that we would increase the footprint of the building slightly to get more on 4 stories, because I think the unit count is kind of around where the project works, especially with this commitment to affordable. To me, the numbers, height numbers in the ordinance are frankly somewhat arbitrary, in that 50 versus 65, and I think we had that discussion a little bit about whether the extra height would also make our plate heights a little more on each level in case we wanted to make that commercial conversion later or some other aspect, and having the extra ceiling heights in order to possibly have these super high efficiency mechanical systems that we're looking at and all, like, so it's really not a magic number of 65. It's just that we can't effectively build a 5-story structure in 50 feet. That 10 per is just too tight. So our earlier design options included 4 stories, but with a little bigger footprint than what we've got, and we felt keeping the eastern side of the site clear and more open was an effective trade, and that 5 as a precedent that people have gotten used to in the town. And I know it's in a different location. I'm very aware of that, and but I think this one along a roadside, a thoroughfare here that is got some foreground to it with the tree cover and where the gas station is situated and all is a good location for this density, including height.
Okay. That's all of my questions. Any more questions for Mr. Spencer? Thank you.
You all.
Madam Mayor, perhaps Tina could join us again.
I'm going to bring her back up. Thank you. Any questions for Tina?
I don't
Questions for Tina?
believe I have. I think my main interest would be to see the proposed conditions, because there's some that are optional. I think we may have a conversation about those.
Oh, okay. Find the slide.
It's right in here.
One thing that I did forget, I'm sorry, and it's not Tina. I think it would be Mr. Spencer. Did I hear Mr. Spencer say that the stormwater control measures are they expanded or increased outside of what the land use ordinance's requirement is? Did I hear you say that? Or was that something you might be working towards? Sorry, could you come up to the microphone? I'm sorry. That's the one thing I forgot to ask before you. I thought I heard you say something about it earlier.
Well, so the way we've kind of read this condition, and as it relates to what we have, is that the stormwater system we have meets the town ordinance now, and that we kind of have agreed to analyze the project's compliance beyond that. So I said that may involve, analyzing additional year storms, or it may be a landscaping issue to where we design something that helps mitigate some further bioretention or something else. We've the stormwater compliance of the town, as I kind of pointed out, is pretty far beyond the state's requirements, and so that's what we went through the variance for, just because Chad's design was, I think, was made more effective by that slight little area we went in there to grade for the stormwater measures. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I heard you talk about bioretention and filtration and dissipating.
We have that already.
Already.
That's already in the design
Okay.
as part of the ordinance compliant measures there.
Right.
This one in italics is basically asking us to. I don't know if that's asking us to prove that we're compliant with the. It's because it says analyze the project's compliance with the provision of the stormwater management, but from my perspective, our design and our variance approval does already prove compliance with that part of the ordinance. But we had kind of talked with staff about going continuing to analyze that and whether we might do additional measures.
I'm kind of glad we swung back
go
here
ahead.
because I know that we do have SUPA here.
Yes.
But my understanding between 25 and 50 in the year flood lines is essentially that it's a question of volume in the SCMs. And
I call
yeah,
my engineer for this one.
Yeah.
Would the variance in place permit 50 years with some of the vegetative options that you said that y'all were open to, and the variance in place? Could the volume be there to meet 50? I mean, my thing here is we do need to shore up our ordinance if that's the desire on council, but we are going to see 50-year storms.
Yes.
That simply is going to be true. So yeah, I guess I would be curious whether we are talking about losing units or footprint considerations if we start to try and get into 50.
I'm going to let Chad Abbott, our civil, maybe address a little bit, but I think that the answer to what you're driving at is that little bit of construction, that the variance was only simply to allow us to work in that small area as part of our stormwater control measures. The changing from an ordinance requirement of the 25-year storm to larger storms or more frequent storms is a little bit of a different animal, and maybe Chad can give you a little bit of background on that if you'd like.
Yeah, I would love to know. And again, I appreciate your tolerance considering that this will be an SUP consideration as well.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Chad Abbott with C3 Design and Engineering. My address is 2537 East Line Station Road in Creedmoor, North Carolina. We have been working extensively for 3 years, trying to get this project to this point, and we've looked at several options when it comes to stormwater, as Mr. Spencer alluded to. Your ordinance is already well above and beyond. I work a lot in the Upper Falls Lake watershed, which is the second, probably other than yours, most stringent place or ordinance requirements by the state for treating of nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, TSS, and peak flow. So your ordinance, of course, goes well above and beyond that. And I think it's worthy to note that, that stormwater flooding has been a concern of several people up until now, but you got to realize that most of those impacts are coming from existing development with unmanaged sites. And our site is adhering to what you've implemented to help start to mitigate that, but you really won't see a reprieve from any of the flooding until the stormwater fund and stuff like you're trying to implement puts measures in place to help control runoff from places like the lady showed in the creek. One thing to note when it comes to flooding and flood control, the proximity of your site to downstream properties is usually what matters when it comes to larger storms. So if our site was at a different place in the watershed and we were not to, right now you require going up to the 25-year storm. Well, it's been mentioned, hey, what about the 50 and what about the 100? Our site's already underwater in those storms. Our mitigation of those storm events really does not impact the overall watershed to a great degree. It's really would be a waste of resources to even try to do that, because if you look at the percentage of flow already at our site under a 50 or 100-year storm, because we are on Toms Creek, the percentage of increased flow from our site at that point is a very, very small amount, because Toms Creek's rather lengthy to get to our site from there. When we did the flood study, it was so many stations above. If we're further removed from Toms Creek, and our discharge of a 50 or 100-year storm event pre and post would have a greater impact if it was running through somebody's yard Like, say we developed upstream of the property where the lady showed the stream, where the creek's running by houses, et cetera. That's when controlling greater than maybe your ordinance minimums would have a better effect on flooding of downstream properties. But our property under a 100-year storm is underwater, so it's not discharging any faster because it's underwater. The water can't get out of our system to begin with. And so that's really the honest truth of it, is that you having requirements for the smaller storms that are 90% of the rainfalls we get, which are the 1 inch to 1 year storm events, make up 90% of the rainfall we get. You taking steps to replenish and not have a volume control requirement is doing a great deal towards helping with the flooding, because under those smaller events, if you reduce flooding of downstream properties, then stream banks can restore, and they can have time to rehabilitate between the larger storms versus getting hit every time by every other storm, because nothing else in Carrboro proper is managing those smaller events. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but
it does. And I appreciate you getting into that, because when you had shared it in joint review, I felt kind of dumb. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense that not mitigating. I mean, I appreciate the breakdown of sort of the significance of the location in the watershed, and
I mean, just for relativity, like, so the existing heel there is around plus or minus, I think, I'm gonna say 448. I know it's like 48. I don't know if it's 548, but it's a 48. And so I think our proposed finished floor is around 49. By the time you grade and slope the parking lot away from the building for drainage towards our BMPs, you're around 48, 47. You go under so now we have underground storage, right? Because there's nowhere to put a pond. We're not doing mass grading in the buffer. We have under the parking lot. So by the time you go 2 foot in the ground for cover or 1 foot in the ground for cover, the top of any pipe is around 46. You got a 3 foot pipe, you're down at 43. And the floodplain comes up to the 43 elevation. So at a minimum, we're at the flood elevation. So we're pushing water into water, or not letting water out, period. So erosiveness of downstream properties is a foregone conclusion at the time, because the whole watershed is flooded and the flood waters have spread out throughout the floodplain. So
we should be more invested in remediation infrastructure. Yeah.
Based on the fact that you are one of the second densely most populated places, that's probably where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, and having new projects like this that are controlling their current stormwater, but now also available to pay extra money into your tax and help you remediate existing issues is a good deal, I think, for the town in this scenario. So,
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Spencer, if I could ask you back up one more time. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a really quick question, which is just, we have two versions of the draft condition for the residential density cap. Do you have a strong feeling you would like to convey to us on whether 38 or 40 makes sense for you?
Not really. We never really talked about 40 in our design time. I think that was, I believe that was a round number that would potentially allow 8 affordable units. So it was a math equation for that. If we got to that 8 affordable units number, we would need a couple of additional units to get there. 34 has always been our kind of target, but it could be that we negotiate with council or whoever else that if we want to add a couple more, we get a couple more, and we might try to increase a couple of parking spaces to accommodate that as well. But that was just honestly, I think Tina was trying to help put some flexibility in for us in that regard. So that's what it's in there for. I don't have a strong feeling about that. I think the owners would be fine with a cap of 38 and a 20% of that, which would probably end up being 7 units.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think that's it.
We'll try and let you sit down for good this time.
We're ready for Tina to come back. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Spencer. Do you have all your questions answered about?
And just for clarity, these are kind of abbreviations. These are shortened versions of the conditions. The full conditions are in your packet. And I just ran upstairs so I could save those on the computer if you want to go through wording and be more precise.
So for the public, I have a question. The illustrative site plan is what is here. And the SUP will get even more specific on items such as condition-wise, whatever the council, other more specific conditions. This is binding here tonight as is.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of the questions about the play area, specific recreational points, how are those developed? More, if there's any, if you were not to move forward with the condition related to the parking, final numbers of parking, the location of bicycle electric charging or EV stations, that level of detail, the specifics for the stormwater, those are things that we typically see at the permit phase, at the special use permit.
Okay.
That will be show compliance with the land use ordinance.
Yes. Thank you. Any more questions for Tina from anyone? Nope. So the public hearing for the text amendment is open. We went right into the public hearing for conditional zoning, but we have consistency and draft ordinance for both. And we would just go through those individually. Correct? We need a motion if there's no further. Do you have a question, Councilmember Posada?
No, ma'am. I wanted to
You
make a
want to
motion.
make the motion for the text amendment?
Yeah, I was going to say we have to do the text amendment first.
To be
so
clear,
that
that's this number, yeah.
I would move that it's consistent and for approval. Is that correct?
That's yeah.
I would-
If you would, for the record, if you just kind of hit the highlights of the
Mhm.
consistency statement.
Of what is saying, the statement.
Yeah, attachment A.
Okay. Yes, so therefore, I move that we adopt attachment A under section 1 saying it's consistent with the town of Carrboro's 2022-2042 comprehensive plan. Do I have to read through this whole section?
I don't think so. I think just hit those. Yeah.
And under section 3 that it and then under section 3 that we would approve the amendment map, right? Am I missing anything on the?
So I think you're looking at the text amendment now. So
Mhm.
you'd be looking at the consistency resolution, attachment A, and then the draft ordinance, attachment B, I think. I think that's what you're saying.
Both.
This, yes.
Mhm.
Attachment A and resolution.
So it's a motion on the floor from Councilmember Posada. Is there a second?
May I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Councilmember Posada, are you including the section 2 of attachment A that finds that that it is reasonable and in the public interest as
Yes.
well? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Section
that was-
A consistent, section 2 and section 3.
Thank you. I'll second.
Thank you. So it's been moved and properly seconded. If there are no further questions, I will call the question.
And that's on the text amendment.
This is on the text
On the
amendment
text
Consistency
only.
resolution,
I'm reading it, yeah.
attachment A.
Mhm. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. We'll move to the conditional zoning. Increasing the maximum building height in the R2 district from 50 feet to 65 feet also has consistency draft ordinance attached to it. A motion? If there's no further discussion or questions.
I'd like to move attachment B, the zoning map amendment.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, so are you now talking about the text, the draft ordinance for the text amendment, attachment B? Okay.
So motion by Mayor Pro Tem Nell, second by Councilmember Posada. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. So both public hearings are still open.
Well, so I believe you would have closed the public hearing for the vote for the text amendment.
You could just formally close it, obviously, once you
Voted.
entertain motion to vote, you know.
So we can formally close both.
Just make it clear on the record, public hearing, so closed, voted on.
Yes,
So just to be, forgive me, just to be clear, so you've now voted on both items?
both items.
And so for the rezoning item, that includes that modification to the future land use map?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Just want to be clear with that.
So the pub. I'm sorry.
If I may check,
Go ahead, Councilmember Fair.
we did not get to the draft conditions.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we needed to
roundabout.
make a choice on which of those would be included and which ones not.
So that was for the consistency resolution, and now you'll work on the ordinance, okay.
You need to amend the.
The number,
Yeah,
number 2 will be the 38.
I suppose that really is the one moving piece here. And I was operating under the owner's comfort with 38. I elided that. So I am, parliamentarily, having voted on this, I would look to the attorney and the manager for the right way to reopen this to close that loop.
We'll make a motion.
I believe we may need a motion to reconsider so that we can
Great.
open it back up
I
to
move we
fix our error
reconsider.
there.
I move we reconsider the vote on the zoning map amendment, so that we can answer the residential density cap question.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Nell to reopen, to revisit the residential density cap, seconded by Councilmember Posada.
So I have been going with 38. I realize, but we should discuss this more. But following Mr. Spencer's comment that the owner would be open to it, it does seem in the interest of the feedback that we've heard tonight to have those two. I suppose that there is the question of whether we would want to leave open the room for the 8th affordable unit. Though considering that 34 is the goal, I don't think that 8th affordable unit for me is a sticking point.
Mayor Pro Tem now, I actually have my point is not about the cap, but it's about number 9 and 10 here.
Great.
Which I believe should both be struck because the specific commitment to affordable housing units is already baked into
20%.
the zone. It is 20%.
Yep.
We cannot identify a specific commitment to ownership or rental at this time. So we can't say that they are committed to the land bank. They can't say that they are committed to an affordable rental program, which I think is the purpose of number 10 here would be to sort of direct them. Is that correct,
Okay.
Tina?
Well, the purpose of number 10 was in the event that you did not move forward with the text amendment, it would be requesting that they commit to a minimum number of affordable units.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
but
So,
I feel satisfied.
Mayor Pro Tem Nowell, I think my My suggestion is that we are striking number 9 and 10. Number 10 because it is moot since we adopted the text amendment. Number 9 because we don't actually want to reimpose
We're satisfied with.
parking minimum. We are satisfied with that, and the alternate transportation amenities are handled in a prior condition.
I agree.
So just to be clear, then, that would be fine, yeah. So what is now shown is a certain number of parking spaces on the illustrative site plan that may be changed slightly when it comes to the special use permit.
So yeah, striking number 9 and number 10 and identifying 38 as the cap. I now once again move the zoning map amendment.
I'll second with the amendments.
Did you have a question?
I was wondering if we needed to vote on the reopening before we voted on this.
We do.
Question for Nick.
Oh, look, if you can do that, just make a quick motion to reopen that issue, get a vote on that, and then entertain this motion that the mayor pro tem.
Thank
So
you.
we had
So,
I believe we had a motion and a second on the reopening. We just did not call the question on it. We went straight
Right,
to
so we're
discussion.
already there. So I'm calling the question now. All in favor?
This is on the reopening.
Reopen, yes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry. Damn it. I apologize. It's
Well,
late. I did not mean to vote nay on that one. That was.
He quickly caught himself.
So, let me make sure it's right now. So what's at issue now is the zoning map amendment.
yes, yes.
The motion is to approve the zoning map amendment with stipulations or
Striking 9 and 10 and going with
Yes.
38 as the residential density cap in number 2. So I would like to move that.
Motion.
All right, and I'll second that. Sorry.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, now seconded by Councilmember Posada. Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. It carries 5-1.
Thank you.
Are we clear with everything before we move forward? I think we are.
I believe we just need to close that remaining public hearing.
Yeah, let's,
Oh,
and do we have to formally close the public hearing now? We've already voted. Okay, so we are formally closing both public hearings that involve 1307 West Main Street for the text amendment and the rezoning. Public hearing is now closed. We'll wait for, and then we'll get to the last. I thought you were joking.
No, it's like I was thinking. I was like, I'm Barbara. I'm calling the question. I was like, I don't know why I was thinking that.
Well,
And it ain't even really that late. It's 10 to 10.
yeah.
You sure do.
We got 3 more of those. I was like, what? Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Oh my gosh. I think like my brain was like, okay, now she's gonna call for the name. So it's like, all in favor say aye, all in favor say nay. But like that was kind of like my brain.
You know what? Town Manager Parker, next item.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The final item is a minor modification of a special use permit A. Here he is. This is for the town council to consider approving a resolution authorizing a change to the front facade of the building at 203 West Weaver Street. Here to present on this item is Marty Roop, the town's development and review administrator.
No, Zach will get it. Thank you, Zach.
I'll go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I have a very brief presentation, so I'll just get on with it, and we'll see where it goes. So, yes, it's about 203 West Weaver Street. Minor modification request. Just some background and overview. The original special use permit was issued back in April 2002 for a restaurant, bar, nightclub use, and you may remember it had originally opened as Provence. Mosaic then replaced Provence and has recently closed, and the property went up for sale. So it has now been purchased by new owners. Yaniv Cohen is here in the audience if you have questions for him as we move along here. And they have plans, he and his wife, to open a bakery, which does fit within the existing use category. So everything is fine there. The only request is to modify the front facade. As this is a visual change to the building, Land Use Ordinance Section 15-64 requires that it come before council rather than be decided at the staff level. So that's why we're here. There's no specific standards related to the request, but we did provide some information in the agenda item about the B2 zoning district and the building being included in the architectural and historical inventory document that we have. And with that, we've provided a draft resolution for consideration by council. This is handled by resolution rather than a decision document, under 160D, where you may be used to seeing decision documents now. As a minor modification, it's just a resolution that you choose to vote for or not. With that, I have here representation of the existing facade on the left, and then the proposed changes on the right. And with that, here's the resolution if you want to discuss it. I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll leave it here to see if you want to discuss the matter. And again, the new owner, Yaniv Cohen, is here if you want to discuss it with him.
Okay. Thank you, Marty.
Cool.
The proposed windows, aren't they similar to Sparrow and Sons? Kind of? The windows.
On Weaver Street as well?
Yeah. I thought I looked across the street like.
I can see if I can pull up a Google Street View. I am not sure
I thought they were kind
off
of.
the top of my head.
I don't think it's.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar.
Kind of similar. Mm-hmm.
May have zoomed in too much there.
Yeah, I was across the street, and I just happened to look over there, and I was like, hey, those look like windows that are being proposed.
I agree with respect to the scale. The important difference, perhaps, just to make sure it's clear, is that these go top to bottom of the facade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of hidden up under the overhang there, but it does go from top to bottom, correct, Yaniv?
As much as we possibly can.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Madam
Thank you,
Mayor.
Marty. Any other
You're welcome.
questions?
Madam Mayor, in respect of the time, I move we adopt the resolution as written.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to adopt this minor modification. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll be first in line for the babka.
For the what?
Oh. Are matters by the board? I don't think there are matters by the board tonight. Nope.
I have no matters.
No matters by the board. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second. Councilmember Frey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.